everyone. Come on in.
Welcome, welcome.
Welcome.
Still cracks me up how Zoom lets people in one person at a time, like you're actually walking into a room.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Welcome. We've so looked forward to this presentation. We've got a great group of folks joining us from around the country. Hello. Great. We'll get started in a minute or two as folks come in.
Yeah, since Zoom can't let everybody in at once, we have to wait till give it a minute or two and slowly trickle in.
How are you today, Alan?
I am wonderful. Weather is beautiful in Bozeman, Montana. I was able to wear my t-shirt today. It was a little chilly this morning, but it'll be in the 60s this afternoon. So
we went from 70 on Sunday to 32 on Monday, and everyone the case of the Mondays.
Admittedly, it's one of the things I love about Montana is that we have these big temperature swings. So it's like 11 months of hot tub weather here because you get to, it can be 70 or 80 even during the summer during the day, and then it'll drop down to 40s at night. However, it's also light to like 10 p.m. So you have to be willing to stay awake long enough to enjoy. So
totally. Okay, folks. I see some people still trickling in, but it's 11:01 Montana time. I say we get started.
Sounds good.
Hello, everyone. I'm Maddie Roach. I'm XYPN Senior Director of Member Success, and I'm thrilled, of course, to host this webinar for all of you. This is a webinar that we put on every month. It's not always with our founder, Alan Moore, but it's always on an awesome topic. You can trust that next month we're talking all about compliance with our wonderful compliance consultants. So be sure to join us next month and every month thereafter, as long as you're interested in the topic. But today I have a feeling a lot of people are interested in this topic, and it is picking the brain of XYPN's co-founder, Alan Moore, about the things he wished he had known before starting a business. And I'm sure he will tell you the story, but remember, XYPN wasn't the first business he started. He had a business before too, so he'll dive into that and talk about what it was like to be a young man opening up his own business. And I'm looking forward to seeing some of the questions that roll in. Don't forget to use that Q&A section. The chat is there if you want it, but the Q&A section is what I'll be looking at as we go at the last half an hour into Q&A. I'm gonna go off the screen now, Alan, and I'm gonna let you do the honors of introducing yourself and getting the party started, and I'll see you all in 30 minutes.
Sounds good. Thank you, Maddie. Let me switch over, share my screen, and go into presentation mode. Welcome, everybody. As Maddie said, my name is Alan Moore, one of the co-founders here at XY Planning Network, along with Michael Kitsis, and I am the CEO here at XYPN, which is weird. As we go through this presentation, we'll talk about how even a title like CEO, it throws me off a little bit sometimes because I can't say that I thought I would be standing here in Bozeman, Montana 7 years ago, here with XY Planning Network and AdvicePay and some of the other projects that we have. And so, my background is I grew up in financial planning. I was fortunate enough to discover this industry, this profession, when I was in college at the University of Georgia. I got my degrees in financial planning and came out knowing I wanted to be a financial planner. I wanted to be in this business. One of the things that if I look back, if you had asked me 10 years ago, longer than that now, 12 years ago when I was graduating college, where I thought I would be. I thought I was going to own a financial planning firm. I thought I would probably buy out an advisor and become a succession plan, like many of us did, or like many of us have planned, or many of you have ultimately done. And ultimately, business took me a little bit different of a direction. One of the things in school is they teach us how to be financial planners. They teach us how to be accountants, lawyers, doctors. They never actually teach us how to run a business. They don't teach us what business really is, what it means to be in business, what flexibility you have, what options you have, what to look out for. So today we wanted to sort of, go back and on the podcast, we always ask, what's one thing you wish you could go back and tell yourself? And so I'm going to tell you the 10 things that I wish I could go back and tell myself. Whether it be 7 years ago when we were launching XY Planning Network or, 10 years ago now, when I was launching Serenity Financial Consulting, my own financial planning firm, and some of the things that I've learned, the lessons I've learned, and one thing I guess we'll touch on this in one of the points, but, just know this is my journey. This is our journey as a business. Everyone's journey is different. And so some of these points may not resonate with you, and that's okay. And that's actually one of the beauties of business. So the first thing that I wish I could go back and tell my younger self is just how important your support network is. When we think about entrepreneurs, we really hold up, the Mark Zuckerbergs and the Bezoses and such at this high level. We talk about those who really went at it alone and took on the world. And we rarely look at the support system that was around them that really supported the business growth and what they went through. As many of you may know, I've got 3 kids. I've got a 6-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 12-week-old now. So I've got a house full. We just went to man-to-man defense, went away from man-to-man. Now we're in zone defense, which is fun. And so, when we were first starting XY Planning Network, I had my financial planning firm. We were starting XYPN, and ultimately, I would say that that XYPN's launch was one of the contributing factors to me getting divorced from the mother of my 6-year-old. And I'm not going to blame XYPN or anything like that. It is that entrepreneurship is a journey, which we'll talk about here in a bit. And it's not a journey for everyone. And I did not understand how important the people around you are, both for supporting you, as well as they must be interested and willing to take the journey with you that you're going to go on. In the end, you can only work so many hours, and you're going to go home, and you're going to complain, you're going to cry, you're going to wish things were different, you're going to say things. And the support system that you have at home, the support system that you have around you, is what's either going to prop you up or it's going to drag you down. So I remember an advisor telling me that he wanted to launch his own business or his own financial planning firm. His significant other wasn't gung-ho. And so she had sort of set these parameters, like, if you can show me this much revenue or these things, then I'll support it. And so he ultimately was able to do that, and he launched his own business. But he talked about every time he would hit a hiccup. He would go home and his wife would say, "I told you so. I told you this wasn't going to work." And it wasn't that she was being mean. It was that she was fearful. She was afraid of entrepreneurship and of the risk that the family was taking, because this isn't just you. This is your family. This is your partner. This is your support network is taking this risk together. And everyone's got to be on board. And if you're not all on board, that's where you start to see relationships break down, whether that be with a spouse, with a partner. It could be with parents. It could be with your study group. It could be with a lot of different people. But in the end, you've all got to be on board. You've all got to be ready for what it means to launch a business, to be an entrepreneur, to ultimately, take the risk and hopefully reap the rewards of entrepreneurship. And so I would encourage you to surround yourself with people who can support your vision while challenging you, who can push you, who can give that emotional support when you need it, but who are also there to check you, to say, "Hey, are you sure that's the way you want to do this? Is this really the way you want to build the business?" The second thing I wish I could go back and tell myself is I've always heard it being called a Chinese proverb, but when I looked it up, no one really knows where it came from. And so we say unknown, but it says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. What this means is that, it's a lot easier coming out of the gate by yourself. You can make all the decisions that you want to make. You don't have to run them by anybody else. You can just get moving. And that's my natural tendency. If you've ever taken the Colby profile, there's quick start. On a scale of 1 to 9, I am a 9. I'm as high of a quick start as you can be. That's why I had the title here, Director of Speeding Things Up. When I started my own RIA, I was alone and I went fast. I was able to roll out quickly. I could get a website built in a couple of days. I could roll out a new service model. I could try new things. And that's a great way to go quickly. But ultimately, I made a lot of decisions that did not lay a foundation for me to go far. And so when we launched XY Planning Network, I did it with a co-founder, did it with Michael Kitsis. And by partnering, he is not a high quick start, but he's a high fact finder, obviously, Michael. He is one who needs a lot of data. He's one who systematizes, builds systems. I'm one who can move a lot faster. And so I speed him up, but he slows me down. And those are good things. And so be really intentional about how you're going to try to build a business. I'm not saying partner. I'm not saying go alone. I'm saying be intentional when you go to launch a business, when you're thinking about launching a business, on, as we're going to talk about, the type of business you want to build, and therefore the foundation that you need in order to do so. Now, if you're one who doesn't like to be accountable to anybody else, you say, if someone tells me no, I'm going to do it anyway. having a co-founder is probably not for you. You got to be willing to be told no. You got to be willing to have other opinions in the room and other ideas. But it depends on the type of business that you're building. And I'll say we laid a much stronger foundation at XYPN than I did in my RIA in Serenity, because I had a partner that was able to help me vet the ideas, help keep focused, stay true to what we were doing. And Michael benefited because he had a partner who was able to move quickly and was willing to push the pace. I alluded to this, but the next piece is to really be intentional about the business that you're building. This is so critical. I'm a huge fan of the now late Tony Hsieh and the work he did at Zappos. But if you read his book, Delivering Happiness, he talks about his first business no one has ever heard of, called Link Exchange. That's a business that ultimately got sold to Microsoft. And his intentionality at Zappos was driven by the fact that he says he woke up one day and didn't want to go to work at Link Exchange, and he realized he had built the wrong business. Now that sounds weird. Built the wrong business. What does that mean? And it really does come down to being really intentional about what you want your day-to-day to look like, the work you want to be doing, and then build the business to support the life that you want to live. If you say, I want to work 20 hours a week and travel the world in an RV, it's a very different business model. It's a different business structure, probably different clients, different team members or employees. Then if you say, I want to be a CEO with 1,000 employees, and the decisions that you make early on will really impact your ability to achieve those goals without having to rip a lot of the foundation of the business out. So in the context of a financial planning firm, we like to separate sort of into 3 businesses that you can build. You can build a solo practice, which is really you by yourself, really focused on working with clients. The way I like to describe this is that the majority of your time is being spent as a financial planner. You are working with clients with the vast majority of your time as you sort of build the business and scale. Obviously, early on, you're doing a lot of other stuff, but as a solopreneur, as a solo practice, you're really focused on, you're going to be by yourself. Now, some folks will say, well, I never want to manage people. I don't want a team. I just want it to be me. I don't want to be accountable for other people's salaries and that sort of thing. And that's great. That's that solo practice. The boutique is a firm that is bigger, maybe 10 to 20 employees, 10 to 20 of you that are focused on doing financial planning, running the business. And your role, instead of just being the lead planner, is, let's say, half of your time is spent being a financial planner and half of your time is really spent on running the business. And that's the part where you do have to be thinking about HR and policy manuals and technology and marketing and infrastructure, meeting cadence, internal communication, some of those things that are important, especially as you start to grow, but it's still a small team. And then finally, we have the enterprise firm. This is a business that ultimately is going to scale, that you want to grow big, let's say bigger than at least 20 or 30 employees. And you're targeting, hey, I want 50 to 100 employees or more. That's a very different business that requires you to do very different things. And so in the end, you're either not doing financial planning with clients because you're running the business full time, or you have hired someone to come in and run the business full time. And that is a really difficult decision to make for those of us who have been in control of our business. And something like, am I going to hire someone to run the business because I do want to grow an enterprise, but I'm not sure if I want to be the CEO. And that's a very different business. And being really intentional early on about the business that you're building. Maddie can tell you stories that, in the end, we thought XY Planning Network was actually going to be a solo business, maybe a boutique, because we're going to have just a couple of us, but we never dreamed that we would become an enterprise firm. I never dreamed that I would use a title like CEO. Like that, it's never occurred to me. And we made some early decisions that have hurt long-term. And we are still 7 years later unwinding some of those decisions. So some of those early on we established as an LLC partnership. We didn't need a corporation. We were never going to issue shares. Like, it's just me and Michael, maybe me, Michael, and Maddie. It's fine. We just moved away from an LLC partnership, and it was extremely expensive, extremely painful to unwind that decision. Early decisions around CRM, around team member titles. There's so many, we can list probably 100 things that we made decisions on because we didn't really know what kind of business we were building. We weren't, some of this was we didn't know the opportunity. And some of it too was I never envisioned that I would want to be the CEO of a company with, 80 team members, which is where we're at today. People will tell me, well, I don't want to be a CEO with 50 employees. I'm like, do you know what it means to be that? Because I did it. The biggest company I ever worked at had 5 employees. All right. We now have a bookkeeping team that's bigger than that, a compliance team that's bigger than that. We have departments that are literally bigger than the biggest company I ever worked at. I had no idea what life was going to be like as an enterprise. And there's a lot that I could have done personally. There's a lot we could have done as a business to prepare for the growth for where we ultimately have ended up that we did not do because we weren't intentional early on about making the decision of which of these 3 we were going to be. The fourth thing, and honestly, if you don't walk away with anything else, I want you to really think about this. I remember I had a great conversation one time with Carl Richards, the sketch guy. I think you all know Carl. And he told me there were 2 theories of entrepreneurship that they study at the research university level. One is that I'm walking down the street and I see a great opportunity and I pick it up and I run with the opportunity, and that is a business. The other, which is sort of a newer field of study, is looking at entrepreneurship through the lens of creativity and art, not science. And what that means is that, we don't look at an artist and say, oh, that artist was walking down the street, they saw an opportunity, they said, I'm going to paint that scenery, and they painted it and they became successful. What we say is they practiced their art over the years. They refined it. They found what they enjoyed. They found what they didn't enjoy, what they loved, what they needed to get better at, and they evolved themselves. They evolved their art into what it became. And no one ever goes to that artist and says, hey, why did you paint the sky pink? I don't like that. It should have been blue. Why did you do it pink? And yet in business, every decision that you make will be questioned by someone. Okay. What do you have an office or do you not? Do you grow? Do you not? Who's your target market? What's your website look like? What are your colors? Everything gets critiqued, and it's okay. But it gives this impression that business is a science, that there are right answers, that people who are successful simply were right more often than they were wrong. And that is not what I see. It is not, what I've learned is that it is not as simple as right and wrong. What I like to tell the team now and what I've learned is that there are no right answers. There are wrong answers, and you have to avoid those. But making decisions, even if many of the things we're talking about today, but even to that last decision point of what kind of business are you going to build, there's no right answer. There's no should build an enterprise, should be solo, should be a boutique. That's your decision. And that's a decision you get to make. One of the beauties of entrepreneurship is the right to make that decision. People like to ask, well, why are you based in Bozeman, Montana? And the answer is, as I said earlier, that got divorced. Well, I had a child with her. And so my 6-year-old is here in Bozeman, Montana. I made the decision that we were going to have an office in Bozeman because I wanted to be near my son. I wasn't leaving. That was a decision that I got to make. People may say, well, is that the right decision? Is it the wrong decision? It's not about right or wrong. It just is. And that's the art side of business. So much of what we do is ultimately art. It's not science. And that's something I did not embrace early enough on and really reiterate enough, as we're making decisions and as we're thinking about ultimately growing a business. If you ultimately choose to go the route of boutique or enterprise, those early hires are critical. A shout out to Maddie, who was team member number 1. She's about to celebrate her 7th anniversary with XYPN because we just turned 7 a few days ago. And early hires, early team members like Maddie laid the foundation for the culture that we ultimately have at XYPN. People like Maddie were the ones who helped lay the foundation for us to build a business that I actually want to work in. I actually want to show up into an office and work with the people that we work with, because those early folks really set the stage for the culture that you build. And, so Maddie, when she came in, she is a get shit done person. All right. That was her title for a long time, director of getting shit done. And that is a piece of our culture that still exists today. It is one of our core values is get shit done, because just how important it is to us and how much of that culture was infused from Maddie, because team member number 2 and then team member number 3 and number 4 came in and were like, whoa, this is a place where you have to get your stuff done. Like, no question. And they followed that. We attracted people into the company that wanted to work in that type of environment. And so be really intentional with those early hires. I know many of us, myself included, can hire family members early on. Because, we hire our friends because that's the network that we have. I would really think about that as you're making some of those decisions. I didn't know Maddie before she started working here. She was a referral from one of our founding members. But I didn't know her, and yet she brought this amazing element into the company that had I just said, like, I'm just going to hire a family member, which we could have, ultimately would not have laid as strong of a foundation as we ultimately were able to. Now, you will make hiring mistakes. It happens. But those early hires are really critical, particularly if you want to build a growing business and you really care about the company culture and the team that you're building. If any of you know Jude Boudreau, who's the founder of Upperline Financial down in New Orleans, he's now with the Planning Center out of Moline out of the Quad Cities. Jude is someone who I give a lot of credit to. I talk about that, early on in my career, when I was launching my own financial planning firm, I made a couple of phone calls to some people who picked up the phone, and Jude was one. Jude answered the phone when I called and asked for help because I didn't know what I was doing, and he was 5 or 10 years ahead of me in terms of his business. And Jude picked up the phone and answered my questions, and I'll credit him with the fact the only reason I found any success was because of folks like Jude, who ultimately answered the phone and helped me. And my commitment out of that was that I would be the guy that answered the phone. And that's what's sort of amusing is that's what ultimately led to XY Planning Network was I picked up the phone so many times. We finally said like, okay, we have to do something more formal to help folks. And so, funny how a conversation 8, 9, 10 years ago ultimately led to where we are today. But one of Jude's quotes, you can probably find this on Twitter, that I absolutely love is he says, entrepreneurship means the highest highs and the lowest lows all in the same day. I am not all about that hustle grind culture of entrepreneurship. I don't believe in a world where, there's this quote out there of, family, friends, work, exercise, sleep, pick 2. Like, I don't believe in that. I think you can have balance as an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship doesn't have to mean 80-hour weeks. It doesn't have to mean the hustle, the grind, never drink, another glass of wine at night because you got to wake up and be on. I don't believe in that. I don't think that's necessary. I think that is a way to do it, but I don't think it's the only way. However, entrepreneurship is an emotional journey, is an emotional roller coaster with highs and with lows, and they come fast. You will lose a client, your biggest client. You're going to lose your biggest client in the morning, and in the afternoon, you're going to get quoted in the Wall Street Journal and get, someone's going to reach out to you about signing up that day. And so you're going to go home at night and just be like, whoa, like what happened to me today? I like sit down, I'm trying to talk to my wife and I'm like, well, this thing happened. And then this thing happened. I'm like, I don't even know how I feel about today. All I know was I experienced a range of emotions. And that is entrepreneurship. I still experience that today where, that I still have very high highs and very low lows because things hit you so fast as a business owner. And be prepared for that. This goes back to that first point of having that support system in place, because that support system is going to help you manage through the lows. They're going to help you manage through the range of emotions. And they're going to give you someone to celebrate with when you have those highs. It's weird to be like, hey, look, I got quoted in the Wall Street Journal. Like, to go out and brag, at least it is for me. I struggle to like brag on myself or talk about achievements. But I need that. I need to be able to talk to someone and be like, hey, I did this cool thing. This thing worked out. Isn't this neat? I do need that pat on the back sometimes. I just don't want it publicly. It's not my style. It's not my personality. And having that support group to help you manage through these highs and lows is so critical, because I've never heard of an entrepreneur that did not experience this. And even those who you look at and you're like, oh, they're so successful. Don't assume that they don't have lows. All right. Michael's podcast where he has the 10% of the glacier that's visible, the 90% that really drives success that's invisible. That is absolutely true. And so be prepared for this. I wish I had a therapist earlier on in my career to help me navigate some of these emotions. Said it before, say it every day until the day I retire. Have a niche. Get a niche focus. Be so focused in what you do that it is so clearly defined that everyone around you knows what you do and who you do it for. When I launched Serenity Financial Consulting, my financial planning firm, my niche, if you went to our Who We Serve page, was individuals and families. Individuals and families. That doesn't exclude very many people. Do you think anybody ever went to my website and they were like, oh, they work with individuals, but they work with families too. And I'm part of a family, so I guess they work with me. I don't think so. I don't think anyone went to that and saw themselves. So what ended up happening, this was an early mistake that I made in my planning firm and never recovered from, was that I worked with a young doctor with $500,000 in student loan debt. I worked with business owners. I worked with someone who screwed up a stock option election, cost him $100,000 in taxes. And then he shows up in my office and is like, hey, can you fix this? I barely studied ISOs and RSUs in CFP programs. So what did that mean? I was doing so much research for one client. I dealt with stock options one time in my career for this one client, and I probably spent 100 hours getting paid for about 15 of them because I wasn't an expert in that topic. Now, had that become my niche, and then I would have worked with more and more clients like that, then yeah, it would have been a great investment. But instead, it was just a lot of lost time and a lot of bouncing all over the place, trying to be an expert in all things. I did Social Security analysis, helping retired clients. And I never said no to, well, early on, I didn't say no to new clients. And that was a huge mistake. You know, at XYPN, people ask, like, what has led to the growth? You have 1,400 advisors, you got 80 team members now. Like, what's led to that growth? And the answer is we have been unfailing and unwavering in our niche market and our niche focus. If you think about the world of financial advisors, 285,000, almost 300,000 financial advisors, we picked like the sliver of the market. We said we're going to be, all our advisors are going to be fee only or fiduciary only. They're going to use monthly subscriptions or a fee for service model to serve next gen clients. They're not going to have asset minimums. And we're going to stand behind the CFP as well. Like, we picked this like tiny corner of the market. And yet I would attribute our growth to the fact that we've been so focused that when we go and roll out a new service, a new offering, when we're negotiating with a new technology vendor, we're really clear on what we need and what we don't, because we know who we're serving. And so I'll have advisors say, well, how, what's the right marketing strategy, the right service model, the right fee structure, the right technology? Should I have an office? I always come back to, well, tell me about your ideal client. Tell me who you serve. And once you tell me who you serve, the marketing strategy for who you serve gets really clear. Okay. The difference between we work with all financial planners and we work with clients or advisors who serve younger clients, monthly retainer, all those things I just said, the marketing strategy becomes much different, even down to something as simple as a podcast release date. Okay, we released a podcast. We have XYPN Radio. When should we release? How long should it be? And how often? Those are big decisions that you have to make, like the format and the timing. So we decided on weekly Wednesday mornings. Why? Because many people in our niche market, pre-pandemic, many of you had commutes. By Monday morning, you're like ready for the week, all right? And by Friday, you are drained. The last thing you need to be doing is listen to a podcast on Monday and Friday. But by Wednesday, you're like, you know what? I'm kind of annoyed right now. Like, I'm done with this commute. I'm frustrated with my work and my boss. Like, I'm not doing the things I want to be doing. And that was the time on a Wednesday morning where we said, hey, maybe that's when they want to hear a story from an advisor who ultimately started their own firm and found success. Now, if I said I work with all advisors, well, there might have been a better time. Maybe it's on the weekend. Maybe it's Tuesday at noon because of whatever reason. Those are some decisions that get so much easier when you're really, really hyper clear on who you serve. So always, you'll hear, again, you're going to hear this until the day I retire, and that is niche, niche, niche. The other thing I wish someone had told me was how important it was to have a system for running your business, whether you have one, it's just you have one team member, or you have 100 or 1,000, it does not matter. Having a system to run the business is so critical and something I did not appreciate. So here at XYPN, we run on the EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, from the book Traction by the author Gino Wickman. We're huge fans. There are about 400 business systems out there. I think they are all equally effective. You just have to pick one. And we picked ours. We love it. There are a lot of financial planning firms that are running EOS with just by themselves, or just with 2 or 3 people, because getting into a cadence of how do we look at data in reporting, what information should we be reviewing weekly? What's our goal? What matters? What's our marketing strategy? What are our core values? Who do we want to be? Where do we want to go? All of that is encompassed in a business system. Do we meet every morning for a 10-minute huddle, or do we have a once a week meeting? Is it all hands? Is that monthly? All of those decisions can ultimately come back to a business system. And so getting really clear on your system, what's going to work for you, and ultimately what's going to help you build the type of business that you want to build is so critical. And we spun our wheels and recreated the wheel quite a bit when we were first starting out. And now we've got it right over here. I got copies of Traction. And now if there's a question like, well, should we do it this way or that way? It's like, I don't know, what's the book say? One, I don't have to decide. And two, we know what ultimately is the best practice because it's in the book. I have two final points that tie together that I really do want to emphasize, and then we're going to switch over to questions. I see we got a lot coming through. I appreciate that. Entrepreneurship is not for everyone. There's so many shoulds in our world where they say, you should do it this way, you should do it that way. If any of you are parents, okay, everyone, whether they have kids or not, have an opinion about how you should parent, things you should do, the way it should be done. Running a business is the same way. There's so many shoulds where people say, oh, you should launch a business, you should take control of your career, you should. I say, don't should on yourself, okay? Take the should out of it. Really think about, is this the life that you want for yourself? Do you have the support system in place? Do you have the financial resources to support a business and support yourself? Are you willing to take on the mental health aspects of those highs and those lows and the challenges that come with entrepreneurship? Are you willing to worry about whether or not you can pay rent? Right? I've had those months where ultimately I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to make rent the next month. And are you willing to take that on? Yeah, hopefully you grow through it, but not always. And that stress can last a long time. Do you have the partner that will support you in your entrepreneurial journey? Entrepreneurship is not a right or a wrong, it just is. Some of the interesting research out there actually shows that entrepreneurs on average make the same amount of money over their lifetime as people who are W-2 employees. We think about the Jeff Bezos, the way they become the richest, I'm going to be rich and be an entrepreneur. I will say the way to become the top 10 richest person in the world is to build a business or to inherit a business. But entrepreneurship is not necessarily the path to make a bunch of money. On average, entrepreneurs make as much money as W-2 employees. That is not on a risk-adjusted basis. Risk-adjusted basis, we make a lot less. Actually, if you go back and read some of Kitces' research, it's actually not even because we want to make money, it's because we're overly confident, which is a great reminder. It's not a should. You don't have to start your own business if you don't want to. If your partner's not game, if it doesn't work for your lifestyle, it doesn't work for the stage of life that you're in. You got young kids, you've got parents that you're supporting, whatever the thing is, it's okay. It's not for everyone. It doesn't need to be for everyone. But I think an equally important component to that too is anyone can be an entrepreneur. There is not a profile of who's going to be successful and who's not, who's ready and who's not. Like, oh, you're a high quick start, so you'll be successful, but oh, you're a high fact find and build systems, you're not going to be. Anyone can be a successful entrepreneur. Okay, absolutely anyone. I truly believe that. Now, there are structural and cultural systemic issues that impact people differently. And I'm not here to say that there are not. I'm not here to say it's easy for everyone. I'm not here to say everyone's on a level playing field. Okay. As a white guy from the South, from a middle-class household, I had advantages. I had some privilege that allowed me to be successful in ways that others may not have. But when it comes to personality, when it comes to strengths and weaknesses and all of that, that is ultimately not going to determine whether or not you're going to be successful. There is a lot of luck in what we do. You want to know what I got lucky? I got lucky that Michael Kitces emailed me back. Right? He emailed me back. Would I be where I am today? Would this business be where it is had I not sent him the email, the original email with the idea for XYPN? No. And had he not emailed me back, we wouldn't be here. And so those things, some of that's just luck, right? And we can't plan for that. However, I do believe that anyone can be a successful entrepreneur. There's not the right profile. There's not, oh, you have to be married, you have to be single, you have to be at a certain life stage, you have to have a certain personality, you need to be an extrovert, or any of those things. I don't think any of that is true. And so don't let anybody tell you don't have what it takes, right? You don't have to do this, but you can if ultimately that's the route that you choose for yourself. All right, well, that was my 10 things that I wish I could go back and tell myself that I have learned over the years. Hopefully some of those were helpful for you as you're thinking about this journey or as you're embarking on this journey for yourself. So I'm gonna bring Maddie back, and Maddie's gonna feed me some questions because I know I have just seen the Zoom ticker. It's kind of stressful to see that Zoom ticker like pop it up. I'm like, oh, I want to look, but then I get easily distracted. So.
There's a lot of things and different areas we could go into. But what I'm seeing as a theme in some of these questions, Alan, is I think it would do some good for you to explain the EOS model and maybe paint that 5-year vision, 10-year target for our attendees.
So more so how they can leverage this in their business, or specifically our intentions here at XYPN?
I'm combining 2 questions of what is EOS and what's our long-term vision at XY.
Great. So EOS, I just recommend go pick up the book. It's called Traction by Gino Wickman. There's another Traction. Someone told me to read it and I read the wrong one first. It was a great book, actually. It was about marketing stuff. But Traction by Gino Wickman, super easy read. It'll take you a few hours. If you're like, I hate business books, there is a version called What the Heck is EOS, which is even more simple. We've had folks on the podcast about it. Kitsis has had folks on the podcast about it. And I think he has a great article from a planner who uses EOS. So EOS is a system for running the business that incorporates a lot of different areas, but it's all about gaining traction in the business. And you do that through having the right data that you're tracking on a weekly basis, having the right cadence and meeting pulse where we meet weekly one-on-one, we meet weekly as a team, we do quarterly planning sessions, being in that sort of meeting rhythm. It's about having the right people and putting them in the right seats, which is so critical. It's about having priorities and having rocks. So we have a 10-year vision and a 3-year picture and a 1-year plan, and then quarterly rocks and quarterly initiatives that we focus on, and having all of that in alignment. I'm losing the other 2 as I work my way around the wheel. But all of that to say, read the book. I'm certainly no expert. We just implement it. But there's so many of these sort of components that ultimately tie together that create a system to be able to run the business. And so it's sort of our business Bible, if you will. It's the way that we run the business. So when we look at it and we say XYPN is on this path and we're using Tractions, or we're using EOS. So we say our sort of 10-year target that they set out there. Some companies use BHAGs, the big, hairy, audacious goal. They like to make something a little bit more tangible. Like a BHAG would be, we want to be bigger than LPL, right? We want 20,000 reps or something like that. Like you sort of set this like, probably never going to achieve it, but there's like a 5% chance or 1% chance you could. Like Microsoft's BHAG was a computer on every desk and in every home. Think back when they started, that was like absurd. Then they achieved it, which is cool. Good for Microsoft. So our 10-year vision, or our 10-year target, is 5,000 advisors that we're offering a suite of middle and back office solutions to 5,000 advisors, supported by 1,000 team members here at XYPN. And so we say we have about 1,400 advisors today. We want to grow to 5,000. And we use the 1,000 team member number as a way of helping our team understand the business model and how we ultimately grow the various services that we offer, like our new tax solutions team and our investment solutions team, and how we're doing more and more over time for our advisors, which ultimately grows the business. So that's more of an internal number, so they understand the growth opportunities. And then it backs into that. We have a 3-year picture where do we need to be in 3 years to be on track for that 10-year? And then we say, where do we need to be by the end of this year in order to be on track? You can't, as they say, you can't walk, 23 miles of a marathon and then suddenly start sprinting and hope to win. You need to be steady, consistent pace. And that's what we're trying to do.
Love that. What would you say is the most expensive mistakes to look out for? Bad software choices, expensive services to hold off on, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh man, the most expensive mistake that you don't actually have to write a check for, but is very, very expensive for the business, is people mistakes. hiring the wrong people, or letting the right people leave when you shouldn't have. Turnover is very, very expensive. Hiring the wrong person, letting them stay too long, not putting them in a position to be successful is very expensive for the business. Now, you don't write a check for that. You don't say like, oh, well, that was a $20,000 mistake. But turnover turnover of a good team member in your business will cost you $100,000 or more. This is what it does. That's the production and the productivity that they're bringing to the team, and what it takes for a new person to go through the hiring process, get ramped up. So people, I am adamant about, we handle right person, right seat issues as quickly as possible. If we find right person according to EOS means they don't meet our core values, that means they will never be able to stay here. Okay, we are adamant that we will have all right people. That's something we're very passionate about. Right seat is, are they in the right position to be successful? Do we if yes, great. If not, do we have the right position to help them? We handle right person, right seat issues as quickly as possible because of how critical they are. From a flip side, another expensive mistake, I guess, that is more tangible. You can think about things like technology. It can be big mistakes. I will say, or it can be expensive mistakes. I will say most, if not all, the decisions that you make in your business are changeable. Okay, so this is one of the things. I don't mean to put fear of like, oh, if I choose the wrong CRM, then my business is going to fail. I would say that most of those, like you pick the wrong CRM, 2 years later, you fix it. It's painful. In technology, we call it code debt. Code debt is a decision that you make that you may not want to live with long-term. You know it was a mistake, or you learn it was a mistake. And the longer you wait, the more the interest accrues. Okay. Eventually, all debt has to be paid, unless you just die. Okay. So we're not going to, so like debt's got to get paid, and a mistake with a CRM, a mistake with a hire, a mistake with taking on a client you shouldn't have taken on. You'll talk about an emotional expense, is taking on the wrong client, the one that drains you, the one that stops you from being able to go serve your other clients. The longer you wait, the more interest accrues, but do know that you can always pay that debt. You just have to pay it at some point.
Great advice. How many hours a week do you spend working on your business, Alan?
I shoot to spend 40 to 45 hours. Now, like actual working, again, I've got 3 kids. I am a sprinter. I've always when I ran track, anything more than 400 meters was like, ain't happening. Coach would try to make us like warm up by running an 800. It's like, good luck. I'm a sprinter. I like to go hard, and then I like to take breaks. And that's just my personality. I'm an all in. I'm ADHD, which means when I'm in, I am in it. What that also means is that drains me over the course of time, and I need recharge time. And so I'm actually trying to get in the habit where I'm taking 1 to 2 weeks a quarter off. I'm starting to work in what EOS calls clarity breaks. I've actually been blocking my Fridays so that I'm still working on Fridays, but I have like deep work time to sort of do my own stuff, but I try to get away with my wife and that sort of thing. So I'm not always successful. I'm always thinking about business. And it's actually something, I recently started working with a therapist. And one of the things that she said, like, why are you here? And one of the big things I wanted to work on was turning work off so I could be a more present father. Because I'm working 40, 45 hours, but then I'm sitting there like reading a book about the Avengers, thinking about tax solutions pricing. And I want to get better. That's something I'm trying to figure out, is like how to learn how to turn that off better for myself. Because I want to be a good role model for my kids. I want them to see hard work, but I also want them to see family time. And so this is an ever evolving thing that we deal with. But I will say, like, don't believe the myth of 80-hour work weeks. No one is productive 80 hours a week. And I mean, no one. So anyone who's working 80 hours a week is because they're not delegating. And it's an ego shot for like, look how hard I'm working. Look how many hours I'm working. Look how much I'm doing. And in reality, if they would just work 40 hours a week, they'd probably get more done, because they could go home, they could recharge, they could reset, they could spend time with friends, spend time with family, go exercise, eat healthier, and actually do better long-term. But that's just my personality.
Yeah. And that's the culture you set here at XYPN for all of us. And therefore is the culture we're able to embody every day. Talk to us a bit about your recommendations for career and industry changers.
Oh man, I love this profession. I love the work that we get to do as financial planners. I truly do. It's funny. I was talking to a guy recently we're shooting a video for a custodian, and they have this guy who loves audio. Now, he wouldn't tell you that, but I was like, your mic sounds really good. And I spent the next 15 minutes learning all about microphones, positioning, plugins to help eliminate background noise. He hates this brick wall, says it's too echoey. I got to move across the office kind of thing. And it's funny. Sometimes I'm like, oh gosh, I'm that guy, but for financial planning. Like after I got over it, I'm like, well, that guy really loves audio. I love financial planning. I love the work that we do here. I do believe that the financial planning profession is for everyone. I've never met anyone that I said, oh yeah, you're not right for financial planning, because there is so much opportunity in this business. There's compliance, and there's legal, and there's marketing, and there's systems and operations, and there's planning, and there's running a business, there's being an entrepreneur, there's flexibility. I mean, we're one of the few professions that gets to say we truly help people. I believe this profession is a helping profession. So we help a lot of people. We make really good money. If you look at the industry studies, like we make really good money, and we actually have a lot of flexibility. Huge fan of the industry. That being said, you got to find your place in it, because there is so much opportunity. And so for career changers, I do recommend, I guess just broadly giving advice is go get your CFP. All right, just go sign up for the study materials, get through that, start to learn the business, go get your first job, see what you think. If you don't like it, go find a new job in financial planning. Don't just leave because that first experience is not what you were hoping. But I will say career changers have a huge edge that I didn't have. Again, I've spent my whole career in this business. Keep in mind, probably 90% of financial advisors were career changers into this business. Okay, the vast majority were. I mean, my degree program didn't even get invented till I think 2005, 2006. So like, this is a very new sort of even opportunity to have been in school and then come into the industry. And so, just know that you'll be in good company, but go get the CFP, learn all that you can, and really find your place. Because again, I think this is an amazing profession, really for anyone, assuming that you love the work.
Beautiful. This question came in before this webinar started. I'm currently working as an associate for a small RIA not affiliated with XY. What can I do now to prepare to break out on my own, specifically in regards to preparing future clients to work with me?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say the hardest part, the biggest variable of success, I'll give two answers to this. I'll say personal finances and having a niche. So the personal financial side, when you look at what it costs to start a business, we have sort of a 1-year financial projection. You may have seen it, sort of your early years of business. It does not cost a lot of money to start a business. What does cost a lot of money is your house, your car payment, your student loan payments, your food, all those things. So what ultimately hurts businesses, particularly in our space, and success many times is not driven by the business expenses, the personal side. So saving money, having a couple years of runway in the bank before you start your business, getting your cost of living as low as possible, so your overheads as low as possible. All of those pieces are really critical. Don't, do the work you do with your clients for yourself. Actually, I would say go hire a financial planner. Okay, I've got a financial planner. Maddie's worked with a financial planner. Go hire a financial planner. And tell them, this is my goal. This is what I want to do. Help me get there. And personal finance is your own budget, your own balance sheet is going to be critical. In terms of preparing for business success, in the end, it comes down to your ability to sell. I know we don't like the S word. I don't sell products. No, you don't. You sell something much more difficult, which is yourself. You sell working with you. And starting to build that network, starting to establish credibility inside of that niche is so critical. So if you can, if your employer allows it or will support it, becoming the expert in stock options. I don't know, making this up. You want to be the expert in stock options. You go every day, you're on, mystockoptions.com or whatever the site is, and you're reading everything you can. You're in a stock option study group. Do you know we have one of those? We have a group of people every week. They get together and talk about stock options. One, that's how complex it is. And two, that's how amazing our advisors are. They just talk stock options every week. read everything you can, network with those advisors, go get the designation, the certification, the education, go learn about tax laws when it comes to these things, go learn everything you can, start to blog, start to share content. If your employer will allow you to blog or do a podcast, you may have to do it anonymously. Just don't earn money doing it. And then it becomes an outside business activity, or talk to compliance to verify what I'm saying. But you can start establishing credibility, try to get on a panel or speak at a conference about it, start to build that network. Because when you go out on your own, being able to say, I'm an expert, this particular topic, this is who I serve, and here's my community, is going to be invaluable when it comes to you ultimately being successful, especially in those early years.
Really great advice. How about some book recommendations for planners who don't have experience?
What is the book? How do you say Nerd's Eye View or Kitsis.com? Shout out to Michael, who I gave up a long time ago trying to keep up with all of his content. But seriously, read every article on Kitsis.com, because if you are new to financial planning and you do not, let me take a step back. I'll tell you a story. First time I met Michael, he would never remember this, but we're in an FPA Georgia event. I went for class credit, and I remember going, and there was this guy on stage, didn't know who he was, talking about leaving an IRA to a trust. Okay, for any of you financial planning nerds, you know that is a very complex topic. I was like halfway through my CFP program, and I was like, what is happening in this session? I had no idea. And I'll never forget, there was a guy raised his hand and tried to challenge, ended up being Kitsis, who was on stage, tried to challenge Kitsis and say oh, well, what about this one little caveat? And Michael pulls out, he quotes the IRC. He literally quotes tax code and says, that's wrong, here it is. And I just remember being like, well, don't challenge that guy on technical stuff. Look, the kid is brilliant. Follow his stuff. You're going to have no idea what he's saying half the time. That's okay. Know where to go look when you have a question. We joke that if we ever have a technical question, we just type the question and then plus Kitsis.com, and then it goes and pulls up the answer. So pure technical knowledge, that's where I would go. But I would also say that your success as a financial planner will be largely driven by your emotional intelligence and your ability to communicate with clients. So go learn about yourself, learn about communication, pick up crucial conversations, pick up emotional intelligence 2.0. I'm looking at my book list over here. Learn about behavioral change, how to help people. Nudge, another great book. The Science of Happy Money, which is all about the science of happiness. Go learn how to help people make better decisions with their money, help people be successful with their money. And that will ultimately make you a successful planner.
Great. What is the biggest thing to consider when coming from the independent BD world? To put another way, what is the biggest consideration going from mostly commission to fee only, primarily from a compliance perspective?
I love sleeping under a weighted blanket. All right. I don't know why. I love this weighted blanket. And there are times where I get I normally appreciate it, but actually last night I was too much. And you pull that blanket off and you're just oh man, this is just so nice. That is how the world is going to feel for you from a compliance perspective when you move from the IBD to the RIA world. You're going to feel this huge weight is off your shoulder. You've been backpacking for 1,000 miles and you finally drop that pack and your shoulders just relax. And you'll forever carry the baggage of sore shoulders from the compliance world. So all of that, I don't mean to be crass, but it is so much easier on our side of the world, because keep in mind, there's two compliance areas. There's the regulators and there's the compliance folks at the BD you're coming from. And I will say your compliance folks at the BD are scarier and stricter than the regulators. There's a reason for that. They're overseeing thousands, hundreds of thousands, sometimes 10,000 advisors doing financial planning. And so that is a huge burden that in the end, one of their advisors screws something up, it goes on their U4 record. It goes on the firm's profile. So it's really important that they implement all this structure. When you leave product sales, when you leave that world, when you no longer have to prove suitability, when you no longer have to prove what you did and all these things to your compliance folks, what you'll find is that in the RIA world, we just get to be fiduciaries 100% of the time. There's never a question of like, am I selling something? Is this advice? What do I have to document? Like, you're just always a fiduciary. So you just get to relax and be like, I'm always working in your best interest. And so the compliance gets so much simpler. I mean, yes, there are things you need to do. You got to archive your social media, never guarantee investment returns. You got to do these things. But in the end, the compliance burden of being an RIA is just such a weight. Quite frankly, it is the number one reason people leave the product world and come to the fiduciary advice world. And it's just because our compliance standards, our compliance world is just so much simpler, even if it's a higher standard. All right, fiduciary standard is much higher than what you're used to coming from a product sales world, and yet it's so much simpler to follow and implement.
Great. And next month, folks, don't forget that we have two of our compliance consultants, one of which was a former Texas state examiner on this exact webinar, and they'll be able to answer lots of compliance questions. As we're rounding out this hour, Alan, maybe we can squeeze two more in. Let's talk a little bit about niches and how to define a compelling one. Does it have to be a regional thing, or can we be less geographically focused? Some thoughts around that.
Yeah, when I say niche or niche, if you choose to mispronounce it, niche is technically correct, but there's riches in the niches. You can't rhyme anything with niche besides quiche, so it's just weird.
Wow, okay. that's a nice little spiel.
So when it comes to your target market, we tend to think, oh, I work with doctors, I work with lawyers. Instead, I want you to take a step back, and instead of being profession-based, I want you to think, what's the problem that I want to help people solve? What's the problem that I want to be an expert in? That could be helping navigate a divorce for women who have been out of the workforce for 10 years plus. This could be, I want to help people navigate their executive comp plans. I want to help people start a business. I want to help people sell a business. The problem I want to solve is, the challenges of intergenerational wealth transfers and how to navigate that. I want to help people who have a child with special needs and the challenges, but the opportunities that come there and the beauty that's in that relationship and the opportunities and the value you can add. Really think about the problem you want to help solve, and then start to sort of formulate that niche market around that. It's Steve Wershing, who, and I believe he wrote an article on Kitces.com. So look up Kitces.com/plus Steve Wershing. And I know they've had some content recently around sort of framing psychographic, demographic, geographic, profession-based, all these different pieces to really broaden your horizons of what a niche can be, and then focus, right? You really can't be too narrow. The more narrow you are, the easier it is. We've got a member, probably one of our fastest growing members. Their niche is Chick-fil-A franchise operators. All right, that's one and done financial based out of Atlanta. That is their niche. They know more about being a Chick-fil-A operator than you or I ever will. There are so many intricacies, so many things that happen there that's very unique to Chick-fil-A, and so he can navigate that. So if I were to ever have a Chick-fil-A operator reach out to me and say, hey, do you know a financial planner? Like, yeah, Daniel Hanush, like easy, right? Or someone says like, hey, I've got stock options, or hey, I'm navigating this, I'm an expat or dealing with this. Like, I know where to send folks. When you work with individuals, families, business owners, institutions, and women, that is a quote from a big RIA in our space, I'll say. I don't know who to send them. Like, I will never refer to them because I have no idea who they serve. So don't be afraid to go small. As my original marketing coach, Kristen Herod, used to say, go small to grow big. And so go small, get really focused, and that's how you ultimately can grow a successful business.
Beautiful. You want to try to squeeze one more in?
Let's do it. Let's do 5 more. People can hang out.
5 more. Okay. Have your business's stated/founding values changed over time? How did you incorporate change into your company culture?
Oh, great question. So I'm gonna read or hear founding values as core values because I guess there's a few things. So I will say the mission of XYPN has evolved a little bit since we first started. So I'll talk mission, core values, and culture. So mission at XYPN, if you had asked me from day one, it was I wanted to bring financial planning to next generation consumers. That was the pure focus. Was how do we get real financial planning in the hands of consumers that have been excluded from an AUM-focused world? And we still do that. That is still part of our mission. But what I have realized over time is that my what gets me up in the morning, what gets this company excited is something a little bit broader. And so we define our mission as helping people live their great lives. And we do that in 3 ways. We do help bring financial planning to consumers, and that is helping clients ultimately achieve their great life through financial planning they didn't have access to before. We also do that through the entrepreneurship of membership. And I have this really strong appreciation now that I can't say I had early on, and that we have as an organization of really being sure our members are building a business that supports their great life, that they're able to achieve their own great life through their business. And also our team. Maddie, you're my first person I ever managed. I never managed a team member before. I've never had employees. It wasn't a thing for me. And I didn't realize early on that how impactful trying to be, we try, we don't always successful, but just trying to be a great employer, trying to be a place that takes care of its people, that gives opportunity can be. And so I'll say the mission has grown a little bit in the sense that we are sort of focused on those 3 areas: helping consumers, helping advisor entrepreneurs, and helping our team. The core values, it's interesting. EOS says core values are not defined, they are discovered. So when you go through a core values exercise, really what happened was they said, okay, write 3 names on the board, either at the company or people that truly embody the type of company you want to be, the core values, what ultimately can never change about the organization. And so we did. We said, what is it about them? What is it about us or these people that really got them on this list, right? And so they say core values never change. If XY Planning Network, and this is what I tell the team, if XYPN suddenly, we're now in oil fracking, okay? We moved to North Dakota, we're into oil fracking. There are things about our company that'll never change, because if they do, everyone here will leave. It's things like being mission driven. Our team signed up here because ultimately they wanted to be part of something bigger than themselves. Do the right thing, even when the right thing is hard. Okay, that's one of our core values. That can never change. I can't move across and be like, hey, sorry, we're gonna need to cover up that environmental impact. Sorry, we had to leak into the river, cover it up. If we did that, everyone leaves. Those are the things about us that make us really unique. And what is cool about core values is if you use them in your hiring process, if you go to careers.xyplanningnetwork.com, you see our policy manual, you see our core values, they're written on the wall, they're everywhere, and they become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because the people who meet those core values are the ones who ultimately take jobs here and ultimately sort of continue to reiterate those core values and grow. And then finally, you have the culture. This is the one that does change. Culture is defined as the personality of the organization based on the people with those core values. And the personality of the organization when there were 5 team members is different than it is today. All right, Maddie and I remember when there were 5 of us, staff retreats, we had no money as an organization. We used to fly to Cancun, rent a 5-bedroom house with a pool because it was cheaper than doing anything in the States. And we each got a bedroom, and that was staff retreat. If I did that today, that would be inappropriate, quite frankly. At the time, maybe it wasn't appropriate then, but at the time it made sense for the business and where we're at. And so the culture, even something as simple as that, has evolved over time. The way we do staff retreats and the way we interact with each other and titles and the way we have our office space and all of those things have evolved. The point, though, is be very, very intentional. Be intentional about the culture of the business that you're building, because in the end, you do not want to wake up one day and hate the business that you've built. And one of the cool things about being the business owner, being the entrepreneur, is the one thing you do get is permission to build the business the way that you want. Take advantage of that. I read the 4-Hour Work Week at one point in my career, and he talks about how many entrepreneurs sit at their desk from 9 to 5, 5 days a week because it's what they're supposed to do. And it's like, go home at 3 if you're done. It's okay. You get that. That's one of the things you get. Take advantage of it and really, really maximize it. So.
I love that, Alan. That is something that has always stood out about you to me since the beginning, was that you wanted to build the company you wanted to work at, and you didn't have to build it this way. So thank you for doing it. And I'm glad it motivates others to take the permission upon themselves to build the company that they want. Folks, we're 3 minutes over. I hope it was worth your time. Alan, as you can tell, can fit in a lot in 1 hour, so we may have to have this over and over again into the future. But for now, just a couple friendly reminders. Next month, of course, we've got our awesome compliance consultants on the phone on this webinar. And then, of course, we always want your feedback about a webinar like this. So check the chat, please. Go ahead and fill out that short survey. Let us know if you like this kind of format, if you like having Alan on, things like that. We appreciate you, of course, for taking time in your day to hear a little bit about the XYPN world and our theory around how to approach building a business. I look forward to maybe one day working with you as XYPN members. And until then, we'll see you next month. Thanks, Alan.
Thanks, everybody.